I closed the classroom door behind me and let out a small sigh. Another day's over, I murmured to myself, feeling a mix of pride and exhaustion. Being a preschool teacher has been a roller coaster of emotions and challenges. From a young age, I dreamed of standing in front of a classroom. As I walked through the school hallways, I reflected on the day's activities. Did the children enjoy today's story? I need to find more books like that, I thought, heading directly to my car. For 6 years now, I'd been doing the same routine after being hired as a teacher at this school. When I arrived home, I found a dinner prepared by my husband, Michael, who was still working. Always thinking of everything, I thought, smiling as I saw my favorite stew on the stove. While reheating the meal, I spoke to myself. Oh, Michael. You always know how to make me happy after a long day. Michael wasn't the most famous chef in town, but he had a true passion for cooking. He made an effort to prepare every meal for us, trying to give me as much peace as possible. For Michael, each dish he cooked was a way to express love and care. I found comfort and joy in the meals he lovingly prepared. Our daily routine didn't allow for much time together during the week. I worked at the school during the day, while Michael worked in the restaurant until early morning. He was saving money for a larger house and dreaming of having children. Sitting at the table, I let my mind wander while eating. I need to find new ways to teach math, maybe using games. The kids love games, I thought, chewing slowly. After dinner, I opened the students' activity notebooks. How did they do today? I wondered aloud as I began grading. I carefully wrote comments, thinking individually about each student. Noah has improved so much in writing, but Olivia needs more help with math, I noted, adding stars and encouraging comments to the notebooks. Once I finished grading the activities, I felt the weight of fatigue settle heavily on my shoulders. Looking at the clock, I realized there was still time before Michael would be home. I usually waited for him, but that night, the tiredness was stronger. Deciding not to fight the drowsiness, I quickly got ready and headed to bed, leaving a note for Michael on the kitchen table. The next morning, I arrived at school with renewed energy. I was ready for another day filled with activities and learning. While teaching the children a new song in the morning, I was interrupted by a gentle knock on the door. It was Principal Raymond, and he had a young boy by his side. "Ms. Emma, could we have a word?" he asked. Principal Raymond introduced the new student. "This is Logan," he said, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. Logan appeared shy, dressed simply, and kept his eyes cast downward. "Logan will be joining your class starting today," Principal Raymond continued. I squatted down to Logan's eye level and offered him a warm smile. "Welcome, Logan. I'm so happy you're joining our class," I said, trying to convey warmth and welcome. However, Logan didn't react much, only giving a slight nod. Principal Raymond then asked me to take Logan to the classroom and introduce him to the other children. "Understood, Principal Raymond." "Let's go, Logan," I said, extending my hand toward him. He hesitated for a moment but followed me silently. As we entered the classroom, I could sense the curiosity in the other children's eyes. "Everyone, we have a new friend joining our class today," I announced, encouraging Logan to step forward. "This is Logan. Let's all give him a warm welcome." The children chorused, "Hello, Logan," and he responded with a shy wave, clearly still adjusting to the new environment. The lesson continued as usual, and I made an effort to include Logan in the activities. As I walked around the room, observing the students' work, I noticed Logan's notebook. It was old, with worn edges, and there were only a few blank pages left. I approached him quietly and asked, "Logan, don't you have a new notebook to start the semester?" Logan looked up at me, and I saw a hint of sadness in his blue eyes. "This is all I have, Ms. Emma," he replied in a barely audible voice. I felt a pang of concern. I knew how important it was for children to have the right supplies for their learning. Without hesitation, I went to my shelf and retrieved a new, still-wrapped notebook. Returning to Logan's desk, I placed the notebook in front of him. "Here you go, Logan. You can use this," I said, offering a reassuring smile. Logan looked at the new notebook, and his eyes seemed to light up a bit. "Thank you, Miss Emma," he murmured, almost too quietly to hear. During recess, I watched the children play in the yard, feeling a mix of relief and hope for Logan's adjustment. I kept an eye on Logan as he slowly made his way to the school gate. From a distance, I saw a man approaching him. The man appeared older and dressed simply, like Logan. He guided the boy to an old car, and they both got in. I watched the car drive away and wondered if that man might be Logan's father. Back home, I found Michael in the kitchen, preparing something that smelled absolutely delicious. He looked up and smiled at me. "How was your day, dear?" I sat at the kitchen counter and began to talk about Logan. "Overall, it was fine, but there's a new student in my class. Michael, he looks so lonely, and his supplies are very old. He didn't even have something to write his homework on." Michael listened carefully and expressed his concern. "It's sad to think a child doesn't have the right tools for learning," he said, stirring something in the pot. "Do you know anything about his parents?" I shook my head. "Not much. I saw a man pick him up today. He seemed like his father or a relative. He was driving an old car," I continued. "He's so quiet, Michael. Today, his notebook barely had any pages left, so I gave him a new one. You should have seen his expression." Michael nodded and placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. "You always do your best for the students, Emma. I'm sure, with time, he'll open up more." As we spoke, I felt a mix of concern and determination. I know that as a teacher, I play a crucial role in the lives of my students, and I'm sure that Logan is no exception. I resolved to understand his situation better and offer as much help as I could. The next day, I arrived at school early, ready for another day of work. I watched as the children came in and noticed that Logan hadn't arrived yet. When he finally showed up, I immediately noticed the state of his clothes and nails. They were dirty, and I felt a pang of worry, wondering about the kind of environment he was living in. During recess, while the other children dashed off to grab their lunches, I saw Logan take out only a crumpled piece of bread from his backpack. In stark contrast, the other kids had a variety of colorful lunches. I remembered the sandwich Michael had prepared for me earlier. Without hesitation, I pulled it out of my bag and approached Logan. "Logan, I brought an extra sandwich today. Would you like to have it?" I asked, offering him the lunch. Logan looked at the sandwich, then at me, clearly embarrassed, and shook his head. But I insisted, "It's really delicious. I think you'll like it." Reluctantly, Logan took the sandwich and started eating. His expression told me just how hungry he was. Seizing the opportunity, I tried to engage him in conversation. "Logan, is the man who picks you up from school your father?" I asked gently. Logan lowered his head and mumbled, "No, he's my uncle. I don't know who my father is." My heart ached at his response. It was clear that Logan's life was more complicated than I had imagined. I sat down next to him, trying to offer some comfort. "You can always talk to me, Logan. I'm here to help you," I said, placing a hand on his shoulder. Logan simply nodded and said nothing. I realized that gaining his trust would take time. Leaving Logan with his sandwich, I headed to the principal's office. I knocked lightly on the door before entering. I found the principal sitting behind a desk surrounded by piles of paperwork. "Principal Raymond, can we talk for a moment?" I asked, closing the door behind me. Principal Raymond looked up at me through his glasses. "Of course, Ms. Emma. How can I assist you?" I took a deep breath, gathering my courage to express my concerns. I wanted to talk about our new student, Logan. There are a few things that concern me. He always comes in with dirty clothes, and today he only had a slice of bread to eat. I'm worried. Principal Raymond sighed and took off his glasses. Ms. Emma, his uncle, enrolled him. He seemed like a suspicious character, but he didn't mention any problems. I didn't see anything wrong myself. I insisted, but his condition seems off. The state of his clothes, his food, don't you think these are things we should be concerned about? Principal Raymond shook his head, clearly irritated. Ms. Emma, you're overthinking this. These are personal issues for him. You should focus on your own work and stop imagining problems where there might be none. I felt a mix of frustration and distrust at Principal Raymond's response. I knew he had a reputation for being a bit self-centered and not truly caring about the students, but I had hoped for more understanding from him. Principal Raymond, as educators, I feel it's our duty to be concerned about the well-being of our students, I said, trying to keep my composure. If a student isn't well, it affects their learning and development. Principal Raymond raised his hands in a gesture of surrender. Ms. Emma, do your job. If there's a real issue, we'll address it. But for now, I'm sorry, but I have a stack of paperwork that needs my attention. I left his office feeling a mix of disappointment and a tinge of helplessness. Despite his reaction, I knew I couldn't just ignore what I saw in Logan. I was determined to understand his situation better. During recess, while the children played in the yard, something caught my attention. A clearly provocative student approached Logan and began taunting him with names like "poor kid" and "it's smelly." Logan, clearly hurt, tried to respond, but I quickly intervened, gently grabbing his arm. I then turned my attention to the offending child. Go to the office right now and wait there. We'll discuss your behavior later, I said sternly, locking eyes with him. The child, realizing he had overstepped, ran off to the office. I then turned back to Logan, who was trying to hold back his tears. Logan, don't listen to what he said. You're a very special kid and don't deserve to be treated like that, I said with warmth, trying to comfort him. Logan looked down, tears streaming down his face. Seeing how upset he was, I came up with an idea. How about we go get some ice cream? Just the two of us, I suggested. But what about class? Logan asked, a bit embarrassed. Don't worry about that. I'll have another teacher cover my afternoon class. Today is a special day just for you, I explained. After a little convincing, Logan agreed, still with a hint of uncertainty. I took Logan to a little ice cream shop near the school. It was a cozy, charming place with a wide array of flavors to choose from. Logan stared at the display case, clearly awestruck by the colorful options. Pick any flavor you like, Logan, I encouraged him. He hesitated for a moment but eventually chose chocolate ice cream. We sat down at a table, and I watched as Logan ate his ice cream. At first, he seemed shy, but as he continued, a genuine smile began to form on his face. It was the first time I had seen this child truly smile. It was a small step, but it meant so much to both of us. After our visit to the ice cream shop, I returned with Logan to school. As soon as we arrived, I was stopped by Principal Raymond. He questioned me about why I had taken a student out of school during class hours. Ms. Emma, this is unacceptable. Why did you take Logan out of the school? He asked, clearly disapproving. Feeling a bit nervous, I tried to explain the situation. Principal Raymond, after what happened during recess, Logan was very upset. I just wanted to cheer him up. We only went for ice cream nearby, I said, hoping he would understand my intentions. However, Principal Raymond showed no flexibility. That's no excuse, Ms. Emma. What if his uncle had come to pick him up and he wasn't here? I argued that I knew the schedule and was confident there was no problem. I just wanted to help. Principal Raymond, I knew there was no risk, I insisted. But the principal was still displeased. Don't let this happen again, Ms. Emma. It could cause problems in the future. By the way, Logan's uncle is on his way to pick him up. I have already informed him about the incident. Hearing that Logan's uncle was on his way, I decided to wait to speak with him. I wanted to better understand the child's situation and see if there was anything more I could do to help. While waiting, I observed Logan. He seemed a bit more relaxed now, thanks to the brief outing. When Logan's uncle arrived, his expression was calm, but there was a hint of coldness in his eyes. Logan immediately approached him, bowing his head as if trying to hide from the world. The uncle looked directly at me and asked seriously, "What happened here?" I received a worrying call from the principal. I tried to explain as clearly and kindly as possible. There was an incident today. Logan was provoked by other students. I intervened before things got worse. He almost reacted, but I managed to calm him down, I explained. Logan's uncle seemed genuinely surprised by the news. He said, "Logan never reacts like that. He's a quiet child," and cast a worried glance at the boy. I noticed that despite his apparent mistrust, he was answering questions, so I decided to broach a more delicate subject. "I've noticed that Logan sometimes comes to school with his clothes or nails a bit dirty. Is there a problem at home?" I asked cautiously. Logan's uncle looked slightly uncomfortable but answered without hostility. "I'll pay more attention. Things can get a bit complicated at home sometimes." I brought up another concern. "Also, Logan hardly does his homework. I'm worried it might be affecting his learning," I said, hoping the uncle would grasp the seriousness of the issue. The uncle looked at Logan, who was still keeping his head down, and said, "I really didn't know about that. I'll start checking his notebooks. Thank you for letting me know." Feeling that establishing direct communication could be beneficial, I asked if he could give me his phone number. "In case we need to talk about Logan," I explained. The uncle hesitated but eventually agreed. "All right. Here's my number. Call me if you need anything." He wrote his number on a piece of paper and handed it to me. I thanked him and watched as he and Logan left. Despite the uncle's evasive attitude, I felt relieved to have established a line of communication. It could be crucial for understanding and helping Logan. Holding the piece of paper with the number, I contemplated the next steps and the best way to handle the situation. When I got home, I found Michael preparing dinner in the kitchen. I sat at the table, lost in thought. Michael noticed my expression and asked, "Are you okay? You look worried, Emma." I sighed and began to recount my conversation with Logan's uncle. I talked to Logan's uncle today. He was quite reserved and didn't say much about their lives. Logan barely looked up when he was near his uncle. "It's really troubling." Michael listened carefully, only interjecting to ask for more details. "But did you get any useful information? Anything that might help us understand the situation better?" I shook my head. "Not much. But I did get his phone number. I plan to observe Logan over the next few days and see if I can discover anything more." Michael, always supportive, said, "Well, at least you're making an effort to get to the bottom of this. You're doing the right thing, Emma. It's important to keep an eye on him. Over time, he might open up to you more," Michael said, his voice filled with reassurance. Then he paused thoughtfully before suggesting, "How about buying some new clothes for Logan? He might be more comfortable at school." I looked at Michael, astonished and touched by his suggestion. Really? That would be wonderful for him. He always comes in the same clothes, and I think having something new might make him feel better, I said with a grateful smile. Of course. I'll cover the cost, so don't worry about that, Michael replied with a warm smile. Michael, you have such a big heart. Thank you, I said, clearly moved by his generosity. The next day, I arrived at school earlier than usual. I was carrying a bag with the new clothes I had bought for Logan. Standing by the door, I waited anxiously for the children to arrive. When Logan finally appeared, I called him over quietly and handed him the bag. I have something for you, I said with a smile. Logan opened the bag and his eyes lit up at the sight of the new clothes. But his expression quickly shifted to one of concern. What's wrong, Logan? I asked, noticing his sudden change. My uncle, he said we're not supposed to take things from others. And we're not supposed to talk about our lives, Logan replied, looking around as if he feared someone might overhear. I felt a chill run down my spine hearing that. That's strange, Logan. Why would he say that? I asked, trying to understand the situation. He simply shrugged, clearly uncomfortable with the conversation. I realized that the conversation I had had with his uncle the previous day might have triggered this reaction. Despite talking to his uncle, it seemed clear that Logan was still neglected. His hair was unkempt, and though his nails were cleaner, signs of neglect were still apparent. My concern grew when I noticed that Logan's homework, written in handwriting that clearly wasn't his, was not being done properly. After class, I quietly called him aside. Logan, who did your homework? The writing here doesn't look like yours, I said, showing him the notebook. He lowered his head and mumbled something I could barely hear. I felt a mix of frustration and worry. Logan, you can trust me. If something is wrong, I want to help, I said, but the boy remained silent, refusing to discuss the matter further. After the conversation with him, I felt a pressing need to take action. I knew it was a risky decision, but I decided to check his records in the principal's office during lunch, when the principal was usually out. I quietly observed the principal leave the school, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. As soon as he was out of sight, I hurried into his office. My pulse raced as I sifted through the folders, each organized by year and alphabetically, making it relatively easy to find what I was looking for. Finally, I located Logan's folder and began to sift through the documents. I was searching for any information about the child's family, especially his parents. I found the names of Logan's mother and father, but what really caught my attention was the name of the person who completed the enrollment process, his uncle, Travis Rossley. I hoped to find their address next, but to my surprise, that section was left blank. Why would anyone leave the address field blank? I thought, feeling my anxiety mount. I continued to search, losing track of time as I did so. Just as I was about to return the documents to the folder, I heard the door open. It was Principal Raymond, returning early from lunch. He looked at me, clearly surprised, and asked, Ms. Emma, what are you doing here? I turned quickly, trying to appear calm despite my surprise. Oh, Principal Raymond. I was looking for information about the upcoming parent meeting. Since you weren't here, I thought I'd check quickly, I said. He looked at me with a hint of distrust, but then nodded. The meeting is next week. I'll send you the details by email, he replied, still with a trace of suspicion. I thanked him and swiftly left the room. My heart continued to race, knowing I had narrowly avoided getting caught. I felt a renewed sense of caution was necessary for the future. As I walked a few steps down the hallway, Principal Raymond called me back. Ms. Emma, there's a phone call for you, he said, handing me the phone. Curious, I took the call. Hello? I asked. An anxious voice on the other end responded. Ms. Emma, it's Travis, Logan's uncle. There's a problem. My car broke down, and I'm stranded in a nearby town. I won't be able to pick up Logan today. Before Travis could say more, I interrupted him. Of course, I can take Logan home. But are you okay? Travis sighed on the other end of the line. Yes, I'm fine. Just stuck here. And please, don't mention this to the principal or anyone at the school. It's better that way. I felt a chill run down my spine, but I agreed. All right, Travis. I'll take care of it. When I hung up the phone, Principal Raymond was still standing there. Was that about Logan? He asked. I quickly answered, trying to remain calm while processing the strange request. Yes, it was his uncle. He was asking about Logan's grades. After classes ended, I approached Logan with a growing sense of unease. Logan, your uncle is having some trouble and won't be able to pick you up today. I'll take you to my house and you can stay there tonight. I'll take you to school tomorrow, and your uncle will pick you up after school, I explained, trying my best to sound reassuring. Logan looked worried and responded quickly. No, Ms. Emma. My uncle said I shouldn't go with anyone else. Without hesitation, I spoke gently. I understand, Logan. But it's just for one night. Your uncle knows all about this. I promise it will be all right. After a few moments of hesitation, Logan nodded, still clearly nervous about the situation. I took out my phone and sent a message to Michael. Michael, Logan will be staying with us tonight. Could you prepare a nice dinner? I think he'll enjoy it. When we arrived home, Logan seemed very embarrassed, unsure of how to behave. Michael greeted us at the door with a warm smile. Hello, Logan. Welcome. We have a special dinner tonight, champ, he said, trying to lift the boy's spirits. Logan looked at Michael, then at me. He still seemed a bit uncomfortable, but the warm atmosphere seemed to help. Do you like roast chicken, Logan? Michael asked as he led him into the kitchen. Logan nodded shyly, and Michael continued. Great. I'll make a special roast chicken just for you. While Michael prepared dinner, I showed Logan where he could sleep and handed him the clean clothes I bought on the way home. You can wear these clothes, Logan. I hope they're comfortable, I said. Logan, still looking embarrassed, thanked me quietly in a small voice. After dinner, I guided Logan to the guest room. When he went to change, I noticed through the slightly open door how startlingly thin he was. Furthermore, his old, holey shoes seemed to tell a story of better days gone by. Logan, make yourself at home here. It's all right. There's no reason to be afraid, I said, trying to give him a sense of security. Logan, now dressed in clean, comfortable clothes, looked at me. The boy's trembling voice revealed his fear as he said, I don't think my uncle will be happy to see me here. He'll probably be angry. I crouched down to his eye level, trying to offer reassurance. It's safe here. Nothing bad will happen. I promise, I said, trying my best to sound comforting, but the boy still seemed uneasy. I needed to understand more about what was going on at home, so I carefully asked, Logan, can you tell me what's happening at home? If there's something troubling you, I might be able to help. Logan shook his head. I can't, Ms. Emma. I promised my uncle I wouldn't talk about it. Can I go to sleep now? His voice was so soft, it was almost a whisper. Hearing that tightened my chest with worry. Of course, Logan. I'll leave the door open. Just call me if you need anything, I said, forcing a smile as I spoke. As I quietly closed the door behind me, leaving a small crack open, I made my way to the living room to share my concerns with Michael. Michael, this situation is not good. Something serious is happening at Logan's uncle's house. We need to do something. I can't just let this go, I said, my voice filled with resolve. Michael looked at me, his eyes filled with support. I trust you'll find a way to help, Emma. We're in this together, he replied. Before dawn, I woke up, driven by a mix of determination and worry. I headed to the kitchen and began preparing a hearty breakfast, thinking about Logan. As I set the plates on the table, I gently called out, Logan, breakfast is ready. Michael joined me in the kitchen, trying to create a relaxed atmosphere during the meal. He started a conversation with Logan. So, Logan, can you tell us a bit more about your family? Michael asked, making an effort to sound casual. Logan looked uncomfortable at the question, hesitating before he answered, I can't talk about that. Then, Logan glanced at the bread on the table and shyly asked, Can I take one of these pieces of bread home with me? I'm always hungry, and sometimes there's not enough food. My heart ached hearing that. Of course, Logan. I'll make sure you can take some delicious sandwiches with you, I said, forcing another smile to hide my concern. As I prepared lunch, Logan watched me attentively. He then murmured, almost too quietly to hear, It must be nice to have a family that takes care of you like this. Those words left a deep impact on Michael and me. We exchanged a look, filled with emotions that spoke volumes. Michael tried to keep his voice calm as he spoke. You know, Logan, sometimes family takes many forms. And what's most important is that there's always someone who cares about you, he said gently. I nodded in agreement and added, That's right, Logan. There will always be people who care about you. After breakfast, I took Logan to school, my heart heavy with a mix of anxiety and concern. During the day, I tried to focus on the activities, but my mind was preoccupied with what the end of the day might bring. I was determined to have a conversation with Travis, Logan's uncle, to better understand the situation and get some answers. As the afternoon wore on, my worry grew. I watched every car that approached the school, hoping to spot Travis. Meanwhile, Logan played outside alone, his expression darker and more troubled than usual. Finally, a car stopped in front of the school. It was Travis. He got out of the car and walked over, asking Logan how his day had been. Then, turning to me, he spoke with such a quickness that it was almost as if he were hiding his intentions. Thank you for taking care of him, but we need to transfer Logan to another school, he said. Logan reacted instantly. His eyes filled with tears, and he ran towards me, clinging to me with a desperate grasp. Please, Ms. Emma, don't let him take me away. I don't want to go, he pleaded, crying. Seeing Logan's despair, my heart felt like it was being crushed. Travis seemed taken aback by Logan's reaction. He took a step towards the child but was interrupted by me. Travis, what's going on? Why are you suddenly trying to transfer Logan? I asked, my voice firm despite my emotional turmoil. Logan continued to cling to me, crying uncontrollably, still holding on to me for comfort. Travis looked uncomfortable and hesitant. Excuse me, Ms. Emma, but this is not your concern. I know what's best. You do not. Now, Logan, let's go, he said with growing irritation. As I watched Travis push Logan towards the car, I felt paralyzed for a moment. Please, don't take me away. I want to stay here, Logan cried, his face streaked with tears. Travis ignored Logan's cries and shoved him into the car with increasing force. Breaking free from my shock, I started running towards the car. Wait, Logan. I screamed, but it was already too late. Travis had already put the child in the car and was getting in himself. I stood beside the car, breathless, and pounded on the window. Travis, what are you doing? This isn't right, I demanded. Without even looking at me, Travis simply accelerated and drove away. I stood there, watching the car disappear, feeling a mix of anger and despair. I need to follow them. I have to find out where he's taking Logan, I thought, racing back to my own car. As I drove, I tried to stay calm, but my heart was pounding wildly. What's happening? What is that man hiding? I asked myself, keeping a safe distance from Travis's car. I knew I had to be cautious not to be noticed. I thought about calling the police, but hesitated. What if this turns into a bigger problem for Logan? I need to be careful. I don't know what this man might do, I considered, deciding to track Travis on my own for now. First, I need to find out where they're going. I kept driving, chasing after Travis's car through the streets. My mind was focused but weighed down with worry. I will find out the truth. Logan, I will keep you safe, I silently vowed, determined to do whatever it took to protect my student. I pressed the accelerator, trying to keep Travis's car in sight. He was driving recklessly, speeding up, and taking sharp turns. I knew I had to maintain my distance but couldn't afford to lose sight of him. What is he trying to hide? Why is he driving so fast? I questioned myself. My heart raced as I continued to follow, moving further away from the city. The strangeness of the situation became more apparent to me with each passing moment. Travis seemed to be heading towards a more isolated area, heightening my sense of urgency and danger. In a rare moment of calm, when a red light stopped us, I quickly pulled out my phone and called Michael. Michael, I'm chasing Logan's uncle. He's driving so fast, and we're moving away from the city, I said, my voice trembling with the tension of the moment. On the other end of the line, Michael responded with concern in his voice. Emma, this is very dangerous. You need to turn back. We don't know what that man might do. But I was resolute. I can't turn back now, Michael. I have to save this child. I'll go all the way, I said, my voice steady despite the fear. I'll send you my location, I added. On the other end of the line, Michael felt a mix of fear and admiration for my bravery. I'm heading your way, he said. But it's a long drive, so it'll take me a bit to get there. He was already preparing to leave. As the traffic light turned green, I kept pursuing them. I knew I was putting myself in danger, but my worry for Logan and my desire to protect him outweighed any fear I had. I drove cautiously but with determination, tracking every move of Travis's car. The further we drove, the higher my tension grew, but I was resolved not to give up. Travis now turned onto an unpaved road, winding through a dense forest. I kept a safe distance, making sure the sound of my car didn't draw attention. The road led to a remote area, and thinking about what I might find there made my stomach churn. Finally, Travis's car stopped next to a ramshackle shed. The shed was surrounded by tall weeds, and trash was scattered on the ground. I parked my car a short distance away and quietly moved toward the shed. I needed to see what was happening, but I knew I had to be extremely cautious to get close. I found a small window and managed to peek inside. What I saw inside that shabby building shocked me. The place was filthy and neglected, with an old, stained mattress on the floor. Logan was sitting on the mattress, visibly distressed. Travis was talking to the boy. His voice was stern, and there was a hint of impatience. Logan, stop crying. This was necessary. You'll understand later, he said. Logan, sobbing, pleaded, please, uncle, don't take me out of school. I like it there. I like my teacher. Hiding and observing the scene, I felt a storm of anger and sympathy. I knew I needed evidence to expose this situation. I quietly took out my phone and began recording through the window. The footage was shocking but necessary. I listened as Logan continued his pleas. "I promise I'll be a good boy. Just don't take me away," he said, his voice choked with tears. Travis remained unshaken, responding gruffly. "It's already decided, Logan. No more talking." As I prepared to leave, my foot accidentally brushed against a plastic bottle hidden among the tall grass. The sound of a crushed bottle shattered the silence of the place, its sharp noise piercing through the evening calm. I froze, my heart pounding violently in my chest. Almost immediately, the door to the shack was yanked open, and Travis appeared. His startled, fearful expression met mine. "What are you doing here?" he demanded. His voice was a mix of shock and terror. Clearly rattled, he moved toward me, his agitation evident. Meanwhile, hearing the commotion and his uncle's voice, Logan burst out of the shack and ran toward me. "Miss Emma, you came to find me, didn't you?" he shouted, his voice trembling with hope and fear. As I tried to process the situation, I turned toward Travis. "Please, calm down. I'm just here because I'm worried about Logan. I'm not here to cause trouble. I just want to understand what's happening," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. Travis paused, looking at me, then at Logan. "I'm not a bad person. You're misunderstanding everything," he spoke quickly, his tone low but firm. Confused and searching for clarity, I took a deep breath, trying to get to the bottom of things. "Then please, explain. What's going on here?" Travis seemed to wrestle internally with what to say next, the tension in the air palpable. "It's complicated," he began. "It's not what you think." Watching him, I sensed the complexity of the situation. I knew that to fully understand what was happening, I needed to listen to him. While Travis hesitated to explain, I glanced at Logan. He clung to me, seeking comfort. I placed my arm around his shoulder, quietly assuring him that everything would be all right. Travis gestured for me to enter the shack. "Come inside. I'll explain everything," he said, his voice carrying a mix of resignation and urgency. Despite my doubts, I stepped into the space he called home. The interior was stifling, dominated by an unpleasant smell and a clear mess of accumulated trash centered around plastic bottles. Inside, Travis asked Logan to go to another room. "Logan, why don't you go play inside?" he said. The boy complied and disappeared into the only slightly tidier room. It was a small space, with a reasonably well-kept mattress and scattered toys on the floor, a stark contrast to the rest of the house. Once alone, Travis began to explain his side of the story. I listened carefully. "It's a long story," he began, choosing each word with care. "Last year, my sister, who was also Logan's mother, passed away. She had been very ill and had been raising Logan on her own. His father, her former lover, is a dangerous man." Travis took a deep breath and continued, reliving each painful moment. "The relationship between my sister and Logan's father was always troubled. He got worse and worse, and she decided to leave him. That's when she found out she was pregnant with Logan," he explained, staring at the floor. "After Logan was born, my former brother-in-law started chasing her. She did everything she could to protect her child, to keep him from learning the truth about his father. She never told Logan who his father was, not wanting to cause him any pain. In the end, she was very poor, just like me. Though my situation was even worse. I'm living off collecting garbage. That's why you see these bottles here. When she died, there was no one else to look after Logan but me. I had no formal training, but I knew I had to protect my nephew," Travis said, his voice trembling with emotion. "At that point, Logan's father learned of my sister's death and decided to take the child. He's a bad man, and I feared what he might do to my nephew. I couldn't allow that. So, I decided to run with Logan, Travis explained, now looking directly at me, his eyes mixed with fear and determination. My sister had managed to buy an old car with great effort. It was the farthest, most isolated place she could find to hide. Everything I've done has been to protect Logan, he said, a heavy sigh escaping his lips. But why did you decide to take Logan out of school? I asked, my voice reflecting my confusion. Travis sighed before answering. When you live like this, there's always the constant fear of being discovered. I don't have legal custody of Logan, and I noticed he was forming a strong bond with you at school. If someone started looking for his real father, it could become dangerous. We might be found, he explained, his eyes showing clear fear. Despite the risks, I enrolled him in school because I understood how important education is for him. But now, with the risks increasing, I don't know what to do, Travis continued, his voice slightly trembling. I felt a pang of worry and asked about the child's meals. What about Logan's meals? Is he eating enough? Travis lowered his head before answering. While Logan is at school, I collect and sell recyclable materials every day. The money I earn just about covers the basics. I buy food for Logan, but often I don't eat so he can. With the little savings I've managed, I bought a used mattress for him. I sleep on an old one, he said, pointing to a worn mattress in the corner of the shed. I felt the weight of Travis's sacrifices and was overwhelmed with emotion. You did all of this on your own, I said, my voice trembling with heartfelt admiration. He looked at me, his eyes reflecting exhaustion and resolve. I'll do whatever it takes to keep Logan safe and happy. He means everything to me. In that moment, I felt a deep urge to help. Their story touched my heart in a way I couldn't ignore. Travis continued, looking at me. Logan doesn't understand the full extent of our situation. I've asked him not to talk to anyone about our lives, to avoid being discovered. But he hates living like this. He cries wanting to go somewhere better. He wants to play as a normal child. I'm doing what I can, but I feel helpless that I can't give him more, Travis confessed, his voice choked with emotion. I felt a surge of empathy and determination. I will help you, I said firmly. I took out my phone and quickly called Michael, explaining the situation briefly. I'll send the location now, I said quickly. On the other end of the line, Michael answered. I understand everything. What a situation. I'm on my way. I'll call my lawyer friend and see what can be done. When Michael arrived at the makeshift shelter, he too was taken aback by the situation. You can't stay here. Please come to our house while we sort this out. He explained that he had a lawyer friend who could help normalize Logan's situation. Travis hesitated. Clearly, he was torn between gratitude for the offer and fear of further exposing himself and Logan. I don't know, this might cause problems for you, he said with concern. But Michael insisted. We can't leave you here in this situation. Besides, with a lawyer, we should be able to find a legal solution to all of this. After a moment of silence, Travis finally nodded. All right, he said. A sigh of relief escaped his lips. Thank you. I don't know how to repay you. At Michael and my house, Travis and Logan were as comfortable as they could be. I provided Logan with clean clothes, and he seemed to find comfort and reassurance in the cozy environment. They had meals together, and for the first time in a while, Logan and Travis enjoyed a nutritious and delicious meal. Michael contacted his lawyer friend, and the lawyer immediately began working on the case. Over the next few days, the lawyer conducted a thorough investigation and discovered that Logan's father was on the run from the law for multiple crimes, including theft. Based on the gathered evidence and testimonies about the suffering Travis's sister had endured with her ex-husband, the lawyer presented a strong case to the judge. After analyzing all the evidence, the judge decided that Travis, being the only close relative with a genuine concern for Logan's welfare, should be awarded custody of the child. When Travis received the news, he was at Michael and my house. He couldn't contain the emotion and gratitude he felt. "I don't know how to thank you," he said, tears streaming down his face. "You've saved both my nephew and me." While celebrating the good news, the phone rang. It was new information from the lawyer. Logan's father had been arrested that morning during a police operation. When Michael loudly shared the news, Travis could hardly believe that the nightmare was finally over. Once all the procedures were in place, Michael and I had another surprise for Travis. We handed him an envelope containing a significant sum of money. "I was saving up for a new house, but I realized you need it more right now," Michael said, handing over the envelope. "So I put half of the savings in here. This should help you get started, finding a place to live, buying clothes, and food. The money will come back eventually." Travis stared at the envelope in disbelief. "I don't know what to say." "This is incredibly generous," he said, overwhelmed and at a loss for words. I smiled and added, "That's not all, Travis. Michael's restaurant has a waiting job available. The pay is good, and he'll teach you everything you need to know." Still in shock, Travis nodded. "I never imagined receiving so much help. How can I ever repay you?" Michael answered with a warm smile, "Just accept it, Travis. You deserve a fresh start, and we're happy to help." Looking on, Logan seemed filled with joy. He rushed over to Michael and me, hugging us tightly. "I don't have to quit school, and we have a place to live, and I can still play with my friends," he said, his voice brimming with emotion. He turned to Travis and asked, "Uncle, it's going to be okay now, right?" Travis embraced Logan, tears of relief and happiness streaming down his face. "Yes, Logan. It's going to be okay," he replied, his voice choked with emotion. Logan looked at Michael and me and said, "You know? We learned about family at school. It's where there's love and kindness. Thank you for being my family." His simple but profound words touched everyone in the room. Michael and I hugged Travis and Logan, knowing they had made a real difference in their lives. Together, we formed a new kind of family, bound by love, kindness, and gratitude.
If you enjoyed this story, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Your support is what keeps us sharing moving stories almost every day. Don't miss the next incredible story coming up on your screen. We truly appreciate your support. See you again soon.